I woke up that morning thinking it would be like every other Christmas break day. The house smelled faintly of coffee, and the heater clicked softly, trying to fight the cold. I didn't rush out of bed because there was nowhere special to go. I was 12, still young enough to believe adults handled things, still old enough to notice when something felt off. When I walked into the kitchen, my mom was already dressed, not in her usual lazy clothes, but in jeans, boots, and a jacket. A small suitcase sat by the door. I remember stopping halfway across the room, my brain trying to catch up before my heart did. She didn't smile. She didn't ask how I slept. She just said she'd be gone for a while. I waited for the rest of the sentence. I thought she would say where she was going or who would be watching me. Instead, she slid a crumpled $5 bill across the table. It stopped right in front of my hand. That was it. No list of instructions, no emergency number, no hug. She picked up her bag, opened the door, and the cold air rushed in before she disappeared. The door shut, and the house felt different immediately. It was too quiet, like even the walls were holding their breath. I stood there staring at the $5, trying to understand what it meant. $5 wasn't lunch money. It wasn't groceries. It wasn't safety. I counted it 3 times anyway, as if the number might change if I hoped hard enough. At first, I told myself it was temporary. Maybe she forgot something. Maybe she'd be back before night. I turned on the TV just to hear another voice, but the noise didn't help. Every sound felt louder, sharper. The refrigerator hum sounded lonely. The clock ticked like it was counting something down. By afternoon, the fear started to settle in. I wondered what I would eat the next day. I wondered if I should tell someone. I wondered if this was normal and I was just overreacting. I didn't cry yet. I felt frozen, like crying would make it real. That night, I lay in bed fully dressed, clutching the $5 like it could protect me. The ceiling looked unfamiliar, even though I'd seen it every night of my life. In that moment, I understood something without having words for it. Childhood had cracked open, and whatever came next would be mine to handle alone. I listened for her car long after the street went silent, replaying her footsteps in my head. My phone stayed still. No messages, no calls. I told myself to sleep, because morning might fix everything. Instead, sleep came in pieces, broken by worry. Each thought circled the same truth I didn't want to accept yet. She chose a vacation and she left me behind. I stared into the dark, learning how quickly trust can disappear when silence replaces answers. That day, the $5 stayed on the kitchen counter for a long time, like it was afraid to move. Every few hours, I picked it up and counted it again. One bill, same creases, same number. I didn't know what I was hoping for, but each time I checked, part of me expected it to turn into more. It never did. The first day passed slowly. I told myself she might call in the evening. I kept my phone close even when I went to the bathroom. Every buzz from a notification made my chest jump, but none of them were from her. By night, the phone was still silent, and so was the house. Silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It pressed in from every corner. The second day, I started making choices. Real ones. I skipped breakfast and told myself it was fine. I used $1 for cheap bread and tried to make it last. I cut the slices thinner than normal. I chewed slowly, pretending I was full. Hunger didn't feel sharp at first. It felt dull, like a low ache that wouldn't leave. School felt strange. I smiled when people talked to me. I nodded when teachers asked questions. Nobody noticed anything wrong, and that hurt more than I expected. Part of me wanted someone to see it, to ask why I looked tired, why I was quiet. Another part of me was scared of what would happen if they did. Days turned into a routine I didn't choose. Wake up, check the phone, count the money, eat less, wait. Every night I told myself she'd call tomorrow. Every morning proved me wrong. I stopped leaving the phone volume on loud because the disappointment felt worse when nothing happened. By the fourth day, the house felt smaller. I moved from room to room just to feel less alone. I sat on the floor sometimes, leaning against the couch, because standing felt like too much effort. I learned how loud hunger can be when there's nothing else to focus on. I learned how quiet fear becomes when you carry it long enough. I didn't cry much. Crying takes energy, and I was saving mine. Instead, I thought, I planned. I wondered how long $5 was supposed to last. I wondered if she missed me at all. The silence answered everything without saying a word. Childhood started slipping away somewhere in those quiet days. Not all at once, but piece by piece. I stopped expecting comfort. I stopped waiting for explanations. I started paying attention to small things like how long bread could last or how to sleep through hunger. At night, I lay awake listening to the clock again, not counting time anymore, but counting how many days I'd been invisible. The silence didn't feel empty. It felt heavy, like something sitting on my chest. I didn't know how long this would continue, or if anyone would notice. All I knew was that $5 was almost gone, and so was the version of me who believed someone would come back just because they were supposed to. I learned quickly that being invisible was safer. When no one noticed you, no one asked questions you couldn't answer. At school, I kept my head down and my voice low. I laughed at the right moments and raised my hand just enough to seem normal. Teachers saw a quiet kid, not a problem. Quiet kids don't get pulled aside. Quiet kids don't have their lives examined. I started watching other people closely. I copied how they acted, how they complained about homework or talked about dinner plans. I nodded along even when my stomach hurt. When someone asked why I wasn't eating much at lunch, I shrugged and said I wasn't hungry. It became easy to lie in small, harmless ways that kept bigger questions away. At home, I learned routines that made the days feel less scary. I cleaned the same rooms again and again, even when they weren't dirty. I did homework early so the evenings felt longer. I turned on the TV just to hear voices, even if I wasn't watching. Silence felt less heavy when it was broken by noise that didn't expect anything from me. Money became something I measured in hours and meals, not numbers. I learned which foods lasted longer and which ones made hunger quieter. I drank more water than I ever had before. I told myself it was healthy. I learned how to ignore the way my body complained because listening didn't change anything. Neighbors passed by me every day. They smiled. They waved. None of them stopped. I realized adults see what they expect to see. A child walking home from school doesn't look abandoned. A child sitting inside with the lights on doesn't look alone. That realization stayed with me. It taught me that survival wasn't about being loud. It was about blending in. Fear didn't disappear, it just learned how to behave. It sat quietly in the background while I did math problems or folded laundry. It showed up at night when the house went dark and the TV was off. That's when I stared at the ceiling and wondered how long I could keep this up. Somewhere in those days, I stopped hoping someone would rescue me. Hope felt like a waste of energy. Instead, I focused on getting through the next hour, then the next day. I became good at it, too good. People think strength always looks loud and brave. Sometimes it looks like a child who doesn't ask for help because asking feels dangerous. I didn't feel strong back then. I felt small. But I learned how to disappear in plain sight, and that skill kept me going. By the time anyone might have noticed something was wrong, I had already learned the rules. Stay quiet, stay normal, stay invisible, and above all, don't expect anyone to come looking for you. She said she'd be back on Friday. Not a question, not a maybe. Friday. I circled the word in my head like it was something solid I could hold on to. I counted days the way other kids counted down to birthdays. Each morning felt lighter because it was one day closer to Friday. On Thursday night, I cleaned the house, not because it needed it, but because I thought she'd notice. I imagined her walking in, suitcase in hand, surprised that everything looked fine. I imagined her smiling, maybe saying thank you. That thought carried me to sleep. Friday came and went. At first, I told myself she was just late. Flights get delayed, traffic happens. I sat on the couch with my shoes on, listening for the door. Every sound outside made my chest tighten. Evening turned into night. The porch light stayed on, the door never opened. The next morning, I checked the phone again. Still nothing. No call, no message. I told myself she'd probably explain later. She always had explanations. That's what parents do. They explain things, and you believe them. On Sunday, she finally called. Her voice sounded relaxed, like she was calling from another world. She said she needed a few more days. Just a few. I didn't say anything at first. I waited for the apology that never came. I waited for her to ask if I was okay. She didn't. I said okay, because that's what she expected. When the call ended, something inside me shifted. Not loudly, quietly, like a door closing without a slam. Monday passed. Then Tuesday. I stopped counting days and started counting disappointments. Each morning I woke up with a small piece of hope, and each night I went to bed without it. Hope became something painful instead of comforting. When she called again, she had another reason. Then another new return date. I nodded along even though she couldn't see me. I stopped asking questions. Questions made the disappointment worse. That's when I learned the difference between waiting and expecting. Waiting still has hope in it, expecting nothing hurts less. I chose the second one. I noticed I didn't rush to the door anymore when the phone rang. I didn't clean the house for her. I didn't imagine conversations where she explained everything and it made sense. Those thoughts felt childish now. Trust doesn't break all at once. It cracks slowly, promise by promise. Each missed return date took something with it. Not just belief in her words, but belief that I mattered enough to be kept in mind. By the time Friday came around again, I didn't circle it. I didn't mark it at all. I already knew how it would end. And for the first time, I didn't cry about it. I just adjusted. That was the moment I stopped waiting to be taken care of, not because I wanted to grow up, but because I realized no one was coming when they said they would. I didn't wake up one day and decide to grow up. It happened in small, quiet moments that didn't feel important at the time. Standing in the kitchen, staring at an empty fridge. Counting coins before school. Deciding whether to eat now or save food for later. Those choices didn't feel brave. They felt necessary. I learned quickly that mistakes had weight. If I spent money wrong, I didn't eat. If I forgot to lock the door, I didn't sleep well. If I trusted the wrong person, I paid for it with fear. Childhood stopped being something I lived in and became something I remembered. I started planning everything. What to eat, what to wear, what to say if someone asked questions. My days became routines built to avoid attention. I packed lunches that looked normal but were smaller than they should have been. I learned how to say, "I'm fine," in a way that ended conversations. At school, teachers praised me for being responsible. They didn't know responsibility came from survival. Being called mature for your age didn't feel like a compliment. It felt like proof that something had gone wrong. At home, silence became my guide. I listened to the building at night, learning which sounds were normal and which weren't. I slept light. I kept my shoes near the bed. I didn't feel scared all the time, but I was always alert. That's what growing up early really looks like. Not confidence, but constant awareness. I stopped asking for help, even in my head. Wanting things felt dangerous, needs felt like risks, so I shrank them. Hunger became something I ignored. Loneliness became familiar. I told myself this was temporary, but I didn't know what temporary meant anymore. There were moments I wished she would walk through the door and tell me I didn't have to do this, that I could be a kid again. But those thoughts faded faster each time. Hope took too much energy. Instead, I learned how to handle things on my own. Not because I trusted myself, but because I had no other choice. I learned that being tired was normal, that stress could sit in your chest all day and still let you function. There was no celebration for this kind of growth. No one clapped when I figured out how to stretch food or avoid trouble. No one noticed when I stopped crying at night. Growing up early didn't feel like strength. It felt like losing something quietly and never getting it back. By then, I wasn't waiting for her anymore. I was busy making sure I could get through the next day, and somehow I did. She came back on a random afternoon, like she had only stepped out for groceries. I heard the key turn in the lock and froze. For a second, I thought I imagined it. Then the door opened, and there she was, standing in the doorway with a tan, a suitcase, and a smile that didn't belong in that house. She said my name like nothing had changed. No rush, no panic. Just casual, like time hadn't moved at all. I stood there, unsure what to do with my hands, my thoughts, my chest that suddenly felt too tight. I had imagined this moment so many times, but none of those versions looked like this. She talked about her trip, the beach, the food, how relaxing it was. I listened, nodding when it seemed right, but every word felt unreal. She never asked how I ate, how I slept, how I managed. She didn't look around the house like she was checking for damage. She acted like everything had stayed exactly as she left it. I waited for an apology. I waited for an explanation. I waited for anything that showed she understood what she had done. Nothing came. Instead, she unpacked and complained about being tired. She asked why the house looked so quiet. I didn't know how to answer that. I noticed how different I felt standing in front of her. I wasn't the same kid she left behind. I felt smaller somehow, but also harder. Like something inside me had locked itself away. I didn't run to hug her. I didn't ask questions. I didn't tell her how scared I had been. I didn't trust what would happen if I did. She didn't seem to notice the change. Or maybe she did and chose not to. She told me I did a good job holding things together. The words landed wrong. I didn't want praise. I wanted recognition. I wanted her to see that I shouldn't have had to do any of it. That night, she slept in her bed like always. I lay awake, listening to her move around the house, hearing proof that I wasn't alone anymore. But it didn't feel safer. It felt unfamiliar. I had learned how to exist without her, and now she felt like a stranger who knew my name. We never talked about the $5. We never talked about the days she missed. The silence wrapped around those weeks and hardened into something permanent. I understood then that she wasn't going to carry this the way I did. She came back, but she didn't return what she took. And I learned something important in that moment. Being present isn't the same as being there, and some wounds don't reopen when the person returns. They just stay, quiet, shaping everything that comes next. The years rolled by with a quiet, unspoken tension that settled into the corners of every family gathering. Birthdays, holidays, and random Sundays were punctuated by polite smiles and careful words, never quite reaching the warmth they once promised. The narrator, now older, had learned to navigate life with a skillful detachment, hiding the persistent ache that clung to memories like stubborn shadows. Every effort to bridge the gap was met with a subtle resistance, a hesitation that whispered of old betrayals and lingering disappointment. Even laughter felt cautious, measured as though exposing too much could reopen old scars. School and work became safe havens, places where achievement could distract from the quiet sorrow at home. The narrator's peers seemed to move forward effortlessly, forging friendships and deep connections, while conversations at home remained surface level, polite but hollow. Every question about feelings was deflected, every attempt at closeness quietly resisted. Trust, once shattered, never fully returned. The narrator learned to nod, to smile, and to walk away without expecting warmth, mastering the art of coexistence without intimacy. Even the family itself seemed to age in silence, each member carrying their own private burdens, yet never finding the courage to speak them aloud. Small gestures, passing a cup of tea, sharing a hallway nod replaced hugs and confidences. The house, once lively with arguments and laughter alike, had grown quieter, the rooms echoing with what was left unsaid. It was as if time had not healed but preserved the wounds, layering them with a thin coat of civility that cracked under any real pressure. Occasional moments of closeness surfaced, brief and fragile like sunlight breaking through a persistent fog. A shared joke, a memory revisited, a glance that lingered a second too long, each one brought a twinge of hope, quickly tempered by the realization that true reconciliation required more than fleeting gestures. The narrator felt the sting of longing for what could have been, a life where connection wasn't a cautious negotiation, but a given. And yet each attempt at intimacy seemed to meet an invisible wall, the distance hardening with every passing year. By now, the narrator had grown into an adult capable, confident, and careful. Life outside the family offered rewards, friendships, and achievements that filled the practical gaps, yet the emotional void persisted. The old wounds were no longer raw, but they were permanent, etched deep into the psyche, shaping every interaction with an unspoken wariness. The audience senses that something significant is building, a moment where all this quiet distance and pent-up tension will demand acknowledgement. The chapter closes with a lingering sense of unease, the realization that some scars do not fade. They simply wait, quietly, for the right moment to reveal their full impact. From the earliest days of adulthood, the narrator realized that relying on anyone else was a gamble they could not afford. Each step forward had to be carved from sheer determination, persistence, and grit. Schoolbooks became companions, classrooms turned into proving grounds, and late nights were filled with studying long after others had gone to sleep. Every grade earned, every certificate achieved felt like a small victory against a world that had offered little guidance or encouragement. The absence of support was no longer just a void, it had become a challenge, one that demanded resourcefulness and unwavering focus. Work followed school with its own set of battles. Every job was taken seriously, every mistake analyzed and corrected without complaint. Promotions came slowly, often bypassing the narrator until persistence proved impossible to ignore. Colleagues admired the dedication, never fully understanding the quiet fire that drove it. There was no one cheering from the sidelines, no one reminding them that they were capable or deserving. Instead, success became a personal validation, a trophy earned in silence, a testament to resilience that required no outside recognition. Even in moments of triumph, there was a bitter taste of isolation. Invitations from family to celebrate milestones were polite but shallow, devoid of acknowledgement for the hard work that had made these achievements possible. The mother, though enjoying the comforts of a more stable home life and reaping the benefits of the narrator's success, never addressed the past. She never mentioned the years of distance, the emotional wounds left behind, or the struggles the narrator had overcome alone. It was an unspoken reminder that appreciation could be fleeting, yet it also strengthened the narrator's resolve. Success was for oneself, not for approval from those who failed to nurture it. Financial independence, professional stability, and personal growth became the pillars of a life carefully constructed. Each decision was deliberate, savings planned, ambitions mapped, relationships chosen for mutual respect rather than obligation. The narrator learned that freedom came not from luck, but from discipline, and that self-reliance was both armor and reward. The quiet pride that settled in the heart was subtle but unshakable, a steady glow that lit the path forward, even in the darkest moments of doubt. Yet beneath the accomplishments lay an undercurrent of unresolved emotion. Success had built walls around the heart as well as the career, and the audience senses that these walls will soon face a challenge that cannot be overcome by discipline alone. This chapter closes with a mix of triumph and tension. The narrator has achieved what seemed impossible without help, yet the unspoken debts of the past linger, preparing the emotional landscape for a reversal that promises both reckoning and release. The stage is set for a confrontation with the long-held wounds, and the quiet pride earned through hardship will play a crucial role in what comes next. It started with small signs, almost imperceptible at first. The mother, once so composed and commanding, began leaving errands unfinished and misplacing things she had once handled effortlessly. A call that went unanswered, a forgotten appointment, a frail voice asking for directions. Each instance felt like a gentle tremor, signaling a shift in the household's balance. The narrator noticed these cracks with a quiet awareness, a mix of curiosity and patience, neither rushing nor gloating. The years of careful independence had taught restraint, and the smallest gestures now carried weight that had been absent for decades. At first there was hesitation. Helping too quickly could seem like pity, and the narrator refused to hand out kindness without purpose. The mother's requests were subtle: a question about a bill, a brief need for company while running an errand, a fleeting glance that betrayed uncertainty. Each one was met with calm competence, the narrator stepping in just enough to guide without overextending. There was satisfaction in observing the subtle acknowledgement of her reliance, though it remained unspoken. The power dynamics were shifting, but slowly, deliberately, and with no overt fanfare. Outside the home, the narrator continued building their life. But now, these changes at home cast a shadow that demanded attention. Planning the day, managing responsibilities, and maintaining success became intertwined with small acts of care. There was no rush to seize control, no desire to humiliate or lecture. Instead, there was a quiet, steady assertion of capability. Every gesture of help reinforced an unspoken truth. The roles that had once seemed fixed were now fluid, and patience was proving more powerful than confrontation. Family gatherings began to feel subtly different. Conversations that had been polite and shallow now carried hints of reliance. The mother sought advice on trivial matters, asked for explanations she had once dismissed, and for the first time deferred to the narrator's judgment. Each instance was measured, almost ceremonial, signaling that the balance of dependency was tipping. The narrator, aware of the slow accumulation of these moments, remained composed, letting anticipation grow rather than forcing acknowledgement. The audience can sense the tension, the quiet thrill of watching the scales begin to shift without overt drama. Even the narrator felt a strange mix of emotions: satisfaction, caution, and an undercurrent of lingering grief from all that had been lost before this subtle reversal. The power was no longer symbolic, it was real, yet tempered by empathy and control. The chapter closes with a sense of restrained inevitability. The mother's need is growing, the narrator's patience is deliberate, and the audience leans forward, sensing that the true moment of reckoning is approaching. Everything is in motion, and the slow, quiet turn promises that the coming shift will be profound, satisfying, and above all, justified. The day arrived with a quiet inevitability, almost ordinary in its timing, yet heavy with unspoken weight. The mother, usually brisk and decisive, hesitated at the doorway, her hand lingering on the frame as if unsure of how to begin. When she finally spoke, it was not with the commanding tone of years past, but with a softness that revealed vulnerability. The request was simple on the surface: financial help. A small favor, a moment of company, but beneath it lay the accumulated tension of decades. A subtle acknowledgement of dependence long resisted. The narrator listened with calm composure, the silence stretching between them like a taut wire, ready to hum. As words hung in the air, memories rushed forward unbidden. The countless times help had been withheld, the quiet nights spent figuring things out alone, the laughter that had once masked frustration all resurfaced with clarity. Every act of self-reliance now cast in stark relief against the mother's plea. Yet the narrator did not react impulsively. Years of restraint had cultivated patience, a measured presence that allowed observation to sharpen rather than the heart to harden. The request became a mirror, reflecting not only the mother's needs but the narrator's journey through solitude, discipline, and quiet triumph. There was an almost electric tension in the room, subtle but undeniable. Every pause, every glance carried meaning. The mother's eyes, once sharp and confident, flickered with uncertainty, while the narrator's expression remained composed, unreadable yet attentive. The power that had been slowly accumulating over the years was no longer abstract. It was tangible, concentrated in the space between words, in the decision not yet made. The audience can feel the suspense coiling, knowing that a single choice now carries the weight of years, yet must be delivered with restraint. When the narrator finally spoke, the words were deliberate, measured, almost gentle. There was no anger, no triumphalism, no immediate satisfaction. Instead, a quiet acknowledgement of the request, a pause for reflection that mirrored the long patience of the past years. The unspoken message was clear: everything had changed, yet the moment was not yet for overt reckoning. The emotional charge in the room was palpable, a mixture of irony, delayed consequence, and suppressed frustration. It was a turning point not only in the mother's dependence, but in the narrator's control of the narrative they had long navigated alone. By the chapter's end, tension had settled into a simmering anticipation. The request had been made, the response contained, and the emotional stakes were higher than ever. Memories and emotions swirled beneath the surface, intertwining past wounds with present opportunities. The stage was set for what the audience has been waiting for, the moment when restraint meets revelation, when quiet patience converges with overdue acknowledgement. This chapter closes with a hush, the kind that carries both anticipation and inevitability, leaving viewers on edge, fully aware that the payoff, the reversal long in the making, is almost within reach. The memory of the $5 came unbidden, simple yet sharp, lodged in the mind like a splinter that refused to dissolve. It wasn't the money itself that mattered. It had never been about the amount, but the weight of the message behind it. That small bill had carried with it judgment, expectation, and a subtle dismissal of the narrator's worth. For years, it had festered quietly, a tiny seed of resentment buried beneath layers of independence, patience, and self-made success. Now, however, reflection brought clarity, not anger. The significance of that moment had transformed into understanding, a lens through which the past could finally be seen in its full, unvarnished truth. As the narrator sat in quiet contemplation, the years of struggle, triumph, and resilience replayed like chapters in an internal film. Every hardship endured alone, every victory achieved without guidance, every moment of self-reliance, it all connected back to that initial understated slight. Yet the feeling was no longer raw. It had evolved into something more profound, insight. The $5 symbolized more than a single act of negligence or judgment. It represented the imbalance that had existed, the need to navigate life without the support that should have been given, and the quiet power that comes from overcoming those circumstances. It was not revenge that stirred in the narrator's chest, but recognition. The mother's request, the years of dependence slowly unfolding, were not occasions for humiliation or retaliation. Instead, they were opportunities to witness the natural consequences of choices long deferred. The $5 had become a metaphor, a touchstone for the lessons learned: independence, discipline, and the understanding that justice does not always announce itself with drama. Sometimes it is silent, patient, and inevitable, arriving in moments that feel both ordinary and profound. Sitting with that memory, the narrator felt a quiet satisfaction, not from dominance, not from proving a point, but from the alignment of past and present. The years of careful effort, the painstaking self-reliance, the resilience in the face of emotional distance, all of it converged in a single crystalline understanding. The $5 was no longer a symbol of loss or injustice, but of growth, endurance, and the subtle power that comes from living a life built entirely on one's own terms. It reframed the past, turning what once felt like an affront into a guidepost for the future. By the end of the reflection, the emotional weight had shifted. The audience, too, senses this quiet transformation. The story is no longer about what was withheld or what was denied. It is about what was earned, what was understood, and how the smallest moments can carry the deepest significance. The stage is set for the ultimate convergence, the narrator's composure, the mother's dependence, and the unspoken reckoning that is coming. This chapter closes with calm clarity, the $5 lingering not as a wound, but as a symbol of the inevitable, patient justice that life, at last, has delivered. The moment arrived with quiet inevitability, the kind that had been building for years, shaped by patience and unspoken understanding. The mother's request, once a tentative gesture of need, hung in the air, a fragile bridge between past and present. The narrator approached it with the same composure that had carried them through decades of independence, mastery, and resilience. There was no anger, no dramatic confrontation, only the deliberate choice to respond in a way that mirrored the lessons learned long ago. This was payback not as punishment but as reflection, a calm demonstration of the consequences of neglect and distance. When the narrator acted, it was measured and precise. Help was offered, but not with warmth or indulgence. Instructions were clear, assistance given efficiently, boundaries maintained. Every gesture communicated the same message the $5 had once carried: competence, self-reliance, and the quiet insistence that lessons must be felt, not lectured. The mother, accustomed to the narrator bending without resistance, felt the shift immediately. There was no outburst, no appeal to sympathy, only recognition of a balance that had finally been restored, the weight of past choices landing softly but undeniably in the present. Throughout the act, memories surfaced, not as distractions but as guides. Every slight, every neglected need, every moment of emotional distance replayed briefly in the narrator's mind, reinforcing the reason for restraint. Yet there was no bitterness in the execution, only clarity. This was justice served quietly, a lesson delivered through presence and action rather than words. The audience feels the tension dissolve into satisfaction as they witness a long-held imbalance corrected with dignity and precision, proving that power does not need cruelty to assert itself. The mother's reaction was subtle yet telling. Surprise, reflection, and a flicker of shame passed across her face, unspoken but unmistakable. She realized, perhaps for the first time, the full scope of the independence the narrator had cultivated in the absence of support. There was no melodrama, no shouting, just a calm awareness that the tables had turned, and the quiet authority once withheld was now firmly established. The emotional distance that had once felt like a barrier now became the instrument of understanding, the method by which the lesson of the past was honored and acknowledged. By the end, the house felt different, not because of anger or conflict, but because equilibrium had been restored. The narrator's composure, their deliberate restraint, and the quiet power of action created closure, relief, and reflection. The story reached its moral and emotional climax, showing that justice does not require spectacle. It requires clarity, patience, and the courage to act without malice. The chapter closes with a profound sense of resolution. Years of tension, distance, and unspoken emotion have culminated in a moment that is calm, yet unmistakable, leaving the audience with a deep understanding of quiet justice, earned wisdom, and the enduring strength of self-reliance. The memory of that $5 bill had followed the narrator through every stage of life, transforming from a symbol of neglect into a quiet teacher. It was never about the money itself, but about understanding the lessons hidden in small, seemingly insignificant moments. Over the years, that lesson had grown, shaping choices, relationships, and self-perception. The narrator realized that the experience had fostered resilience, independence, and clarity qualities that could never have been instilled by indulgence or hand-holding. It had been a lesson learned the hard way, but one that had prepared them to navigate life with both confidence and discernment. Reflecting on the journey, the narrator recognized the power of boundaries. Every decision to protect emotional space, to act with patience, and to maintain integrity had been informed by the $5 moment. Boundaries were not walls meant to isolate, but instruments of self-respect, shields that allowed for measured interactions without surrendering autonomy. The mother's eventual reliance had not felt like revenge, but a natural consequence of past choices. A delicate, inevitable balance that the narrator could meet with composure rather than anger. The $5 had quietly taught that life's lessons are often subtle, arriving in small, unassuming forms before revealing their true weight. Acceptance became the final act of understanding. There was no bitterness, no lingering need for retribution. The narrator acknowledged the past as it was, imperfect, sometimes painful, yet instrumental in creating the person they had become. Survival was not just about enduring hardships, it was about transforming them into insight, strength, and the ability to act deliberately. Every success, every moment of independence, every calm response to the mother's request was proof of growth and of the enduring lessons embedded in a seemingly trivial gesture from years ago. The emotional closure was quiet but profound. The narrator could see the mother clearly, recognizing her flaws and limitations without resentment clouding the view. Empathy existed alongside firmness, understanding paired with discernment. The audience feels this shift naturally, sensing that true reconciliation doesn't always require forgiveness in words. It can exist in the form of calm reflection, in the acceptance of life's lessons, and in the measured responses that honor both self and past experience. The $5 had become a symbol of personal accountability, of the quiet justice of patience and integrity, and of the ability to navigate relationships without losing oneself. In the end, the narrator's story closes not with dramatic resolution, but with a gentle equilibrium. The past is acknowledged, the lessons internalized, and the future approached with confidence tempered by wisdom. The audience is left in a reflective state, understanding that growth often comes through small, overlooked moments and that emotional strength is cultivated in quiet, deliberate ways. The chapter in the story concludes with calm satisfaction. The $5, once a source of pain, now represents clarity, resilience, and the enduring power of living life on one's own terms. It is a lesson complete, leaving viewers contemplative, emotionally fulfilled, and inspired by the subtle power of patience, perseverance, and understanding. If the story of growth, resilience, and the lessons hidden in small moments spoke to you, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Drop a comment below sharing a lesson that changed your life, just like that $5 shaped the narrator. And if the story moved you, hit like and share it with someone who needs a reminder that even the smallest moments can leave the biggest impact. Your support keeps these stories alive, and who knows, the next one might just change your perspective too.